What's up, everybody? Welcome to this episode of the Xtra Mile Podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Jones, also known as Mr. Brightside, and I'm super excited to have this guest on because, as I've said in other episodes, I'm excited that this entire season is all back home. Last year, we had a lot of people from all over the country on the podcast. We had them flying in. We had them zooming in virtually. And the original intention of this podcast was to bring hometown heroes onto the show. And we've got one for you today. Stay tuned right after this intro for an intro to my good friend, Kevin Mitten.
What's going on?
The Xtra Mile, Mr. Brightside. Yeah, I know you heard me. Stop this movement that's moving. Well, you gon' have to murder me. Overcome adversity. My whole life, Bobby Jones, Mr. Brightside. And this is the Xtra Mile.
Woo!
What is going on, Bobby Jones?
Yeah, man.
Man.
Got a little intro from my buddy Joey Yak.
I must say, the watching this podcast grow from like the first episode, it's almost like watching Gary V's wine library from the beginning of time, right?
You hear that?
Have you talked about
You just
that
compared
before?
me to Gary V. We can end the show now. It's over.
are,
He's just
Bobby.
done enough, man.
You are Dover's Gary V.
Oh, shoot. That's amazing.
It's cool
It's
to
grown.
watch you guys grow.
It's come a long way for sure. It's
man.
for sure. Dude, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, man, thanks for
Everybody,
having
this is my friend Kevin Mitten. Kevin's got an awesome story that we're going to get into here in a second. We're going to talk about some of the things that he's been able to do in his business. But it's kind of cool because I talk about Master Networks often in my podcast just because it's a big part of what I've done. And it's so cool because we've got our workshop this Thursday at Wild Quail, which is where I met our chapter for the first time when I met you.
Is it?
Yeah. So when I visited my very first chapter was over at Wild Quail, and I walked into the room, and at first I was like, man, I'm out of my league here.
No.
I'm in the wrong room. But you guys were so welcoming, and everybody was so humble, no matter their accomplishments or their positions in life. And so that's what really kind of opened my eyes to the idea that people that are really winning are in a mindset of abundance and so willing to help others. And it was
Absolutely.
it was so awesome to see.
Master Network's been huge for me as well. And was it Quail?
Yeah.
Sure it wasn't Dover Downs?
No, what's crazy is
I'm pretty sure,
no.
maybe I wasn't at that first meeting. Maybe
I
but
think you were though,
could've sworn
because
it was Dover
Doug,
Downs.
I think had set up that we were meeting over there. There was like a couple of meetings were at Quail, and then we moved quickly to Keystone. And then I actually had a friend at Dover Downs who set us up for the venue at Dover Downs. Yeah.
Yes,
that's
that's
how
right.
I know.
So
It definitely wasn't the first
I
time.
remember you coming in, and it was just, like you say that you come in a bunch of big shots, but I would never know you weren't a big shot. And I'm pretty sure you were on your way if you weren't there already. So.
Oh shit! All right,
And you know,
all right,
what's up,
Kevin.
Bobby? It's gonna turn into an interview about you, not me. So.
I mean, this guy is flattering me in all angles right now. So all right, let's move in. Kevin, it's kind of cool because I've had a couple of people on the show. CJ Faison, are you familiar with CJ?
I remember from the podcast.
Okay, yeah,
Don't
he
know
owns the
outside,
Delaware Auto Exchange in Felton, and bro, it's so
I've
crazy.
met CJ before. He came to at least one of our meetings before.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's so crazy, and I'd love to make the intro for you guys, but CJ grew up in his dad's business and started taking over some responsibilities.
Absolutely.
And last year he lost his dad
Did he really?
wow.
wow.
to a battle with cancer. And so a lot of times I look back on my conversations with CJ and what you've done with Mitten and Winners.
Absolutely.
And so we'll not to get too ahead of ourselves. So we'll go back before that and talk about like just early life, Kevin. I know that sports was a big part of your life, and so I don't want to skip over any of that stuff. So let's go back to early life, and let's just kind of talk about some of what you experienced growing up and that kind of thing.
Absolutely, yeah. So first, to CJ, I mean, yeah, I lost my dad in 2020. I'm gonna try not to get choked up here, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's a certain blessing to the way I lost him, which was from a heart attack. And God bless CJ for what he went through, because I've talked to a lot of people that have lost their parents, and there's a certain blessing the way I lost my dad, which was, in his sleep.
Yeah.
So, for somebody to go through and have to watch their parents suffer, I mean, something
imagine.
I can't relate to.
Yeah.
But
and we'll get back to that because I do have some questions about that.
Skipping to the end of the podcast.
Yeah, no,
sorry.
I just because I do have some questions about that, but I don't want to jump the gun on that yet because I know that conversation will be pretty raw and
So back to the beginning then.
Yes,
I want to
sir.
go back all the way to the sports. So I literally grew up playing soccer my whole life. Bobby, you probably had your sport, maybe not. But for me, I played every sport there was: swimming, tennis, did karate, basketball, baseball. I was decent at all of them, but soccer is where I really found my first true passion in life. Yeah. And that started back in literally kinder kicks, and I was at CDSA for a while. I don't know if you grew up in Dover, right?
Yeah.
So you probably remember CDSA sports. I think they're still around.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, my brother actually played soccer for a while too.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But I'm gonna give a little shout out to Chad Reed, who was my first. He was the coach who took me to the next level. He pretty much took me under his wing, and I had everything that you needed to be a good athlete. You know, I had the speed. I wasn't big, but I wasn't small, but I was really fast. So he pretty much, I think he saw that in me. He took me up north to Kirkwood, Hockessin area. It was actually the Hockessin Lightning back then, and he pretty much put me with a new level of people, of kids. That was again U12, and that's when I started really progressing in that career. So I was by far the worst kid on the field.
I was just about to ask that.
Not even like a comparison.
So, but after the transition, you mean?
When I first went up to Hockessin.
Once you went up
there. It was
there,
kind of like, who's this Dover kid riding with Chad in his vehicle, you know?
Right.
What's up?
Yeah.
And they all were like trying to prove a point to me too.
Yeah, I'm sure. Because you're like, you could be the badass in one area, and then you get to the other area, and you're like, holy crap. But
absolutely. But that, looking back, that was a significant part of my life.
Right.
My dad putting me with that level of kids because, again, you step into a field with people that are better than you.
Yeah.
You're going to get better. So
yeah. Now what?
I started progressing a lot from there.
Yeah. Now I could imagine somebody getting into the same situation and being discouraged. What about it motivated you to push forward and to just be a better player?
That's a good question. Honestly, I just got knocked down a little bit.
Yeah.
Like I said, I had the speed. For me, it was just like learning to control the speed and like stuff like that. And I think, you know, it's hard to say per se, but it was just really, you know, just being with better competition. I don't think I really knew back then.
Yeah. Okay.
Is the answer to
well,
that.
no, I think
I don't
also
think I sat there and actually thought about that. I just progressed.
It sounds like also, I mean, your parents did a great job making sure that you wouldn't be discouraged in a situation like that, right? It's like the person that walks into the room and everybody in the room is smarter than them. You could either be motivated, inspired by that, or you could retreat.
That's right. But, you know, thinking back to it, which is what's really cool is by the end of Hockessin Lightning, which eventually became Kirkwood Premier, there was a point in that time where I became captain.
Oh, crap.
So I literally went thinking back, and I never really thought of this, but from being the worst kid on the field to becoming captain, which was obviously a big honor back then. So.
Yeah, and you had to be pretty talented. It's like you can't just be a good leader to be a captain.
Like I said, I had all the assets to be a good soccer player.
Nice.
Chad kind of just refined them.
How much time was that by the time you were the worst player on the team to captain?
When are you going to high school?
14, I think.
14, 15. So maybe like, I want to say about 15 or 16, because it was still when we were in our prime. And once you get to high school, things start changing a little bit as far as soccer goes. So
awesome.
I mean, everything's different now, but back to like what it used to be.
So what about after high school?
After high school, in terms of
sports. Soccer. Yeah.
So I went to Sally's first because that was a big part of my life as well. Had a great coach there, Scott Mosier. He led us to 3 state championships, and I remember so at Sally's, I don't think it's like this everywhere, but there is a freshman team, JV, varsity.
Oh wow, okay.
I bypassed the freshman team and played with another buddy of mine, Mike Volk, who went on to become a much bigger soccer player than I was. But we bypassed the freshman team. We played JV, so we were the only 2 freshmen on the JV team that year. What's cool about it, why I'm telling you this, is because we ended up being having the longest winning record back then, which was 72-0.
Oh, wow.
By the time we got to our senior year. We did have a loss eventually, but of course our coach lined us up with the #1 team in the nation that we played on the UD soccer field, which is where I ended up playing college soccer.
Nice.
So I remember I had already committed at that point to UD to play soccer. And I remember my coach was watching me the UD coach.
Yeah.
And we got our butts kicked. I mean, it was amazing.
Did you have a good game or?
I mean, it was okay. It was just the team we were playing was #1 in the nation. I think we were like number 6 at that time.
Yeah.
But I mean, you're bringing in teams of different caliber. So we got our butts handed to us. And I remember seeing my UD coach, my to-be UD coach at the end of that. And he just said, sometimes you got to tip your hat, Kev.
Yeah.
Because they were good.
Yeah.
So
there's a video that goes around TikTok right now. And it's like, he's like, my mom used to say, he said, no matter how bad you are or good you are, right? They're using it that way. But no matter how good you are, there's going to be somebody that comes along that's better than you. And
right.
So, but he responds back. He's like, no, Mom, somebody got to be the best. And so, but you're right though, man. There's going to, I mean, people, you know, you got to respect their time on task, becoming great at that. You know what I mean? They didn't just wake up one morning and become that good as a team. So you got to have that respect for them because they put the work in.
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely, man.
So okay, so you went to UD.
So I went to UD, played soccer there for 3 years. Ended up quitting my senior year just so I could. I'm not going to get into the whole story on that one, but just so I could have a little college time.
Gotcha.
I didn't know I was going to do that until some things transpired. Pretty much was me hanging out the freshmen at my house. When we signed contracts, we weren't going to be hanging out the freshmen, you know.
Yeah.
Which means having some drinks.
Yeah.
So ended up getting suspended for a couple weeks.
Okay.
Had a great time.
Yeah.
You know,
Sometimes it's worth it. I don't know.
Yeah, I won't say it was worth it. You know, I remember going back in like a week later to one of the sophomores was holding a party, and I walked into the party, and I didn't know what to expect. I just got suspended off the team, right? Just for 2 weeks, so I could, I guess, think about my actions. And I remember them just, I came in, and they just all stopped, and they're like, Kevin. The whole party starts chanting my name. I'm not making this up, I swear. It was the soccer team. I guess pretty much what it was about was just, you know, we signed a contract, but we're still gonna have a little fun. So
right, yeah, kind of.
For some reason they respected me at the end of it. I don't know if it's the right move or not. But anyway, at the end of that, the coach ended up bringing me back in. I actually scheduled a meeting with both the coaches because I knew at that time I was going to drop off the team. Okay. Because I made that decision during that 2-week suspension. Yeah. And I walked in the room. Coach says, "You're quitting, aren't you?" I said, "Yeah, I'm quitting." And we pretty much just reflected on why he made the decision. Was it the right decision? Should he do that stuff in the future? And I gave him my thoughts. So, but it was good. Yeah. Nothing but great things to say about UD and the team. So definitely a good part of my life. Glad
for sure. For sure. Now, we've talked before, and I don't mean to jump the gun at all, but we've talked before about the role that, you know, being an athlete, having that relationship with a coach who's, you know, asking you to practice harder, get better here, and like the commitment to being an athlete and how that like became part of you as an individual as well. So when you were done with soccer, let's talk about how like that played out for you.
That's a good question, Bobby. You know, and I've referred back to this probably in some of my showcases, but I would absolutely 100% not be the person I am today without soccer and the competitive aspect of it in my life. And I think the big word for that is discipline for me. Yeah, it taught me discipline. Once I was done with soccer, I immediately picked up weightlifting like that. Yeah, I became the big guy. Right,
I've seen some pictures.
Yeah, I was a big guy. I mean, it was I just started lifting, completely unhealthy. That wasn't healthy by any means. I was just lifting.
Yeah, you were just like replacing
living the college
that.
life and lifting. So yeah, but it pretty much replaced the void that soccer I lost from soccer. Never completely fulfilled me. Honestly, there was a really long period of my life where I felt that void from what competition had given me literally since I was a kid. Yeah. And the one thing that changed that for me was the Spartan race.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the Spartan races.
I'm actually not doing that anymore. I do have a race coming up, but I started getting a little competitive into that. Yeah. That's what kind of got me from the traditional unhealthy lifting that a lot of people fall into to actually getting back into being a little bit more athletic again. So
yeah, I think it's crazy how often, I mean, I don't want to say how often because I don't know the numbers on that, but I do think it's crazy how doing something that the community, the world will look at as a healthy thing to do, which is working out, lifting weights, exercising, can be extremely unhealthy. And there's a lot of different ways. Your way, I don't think, was the same way that I've always looked at it, but there's a lot of people that are, you know, battling severe insecurities and are filling that by trying to get strong and, like more fit body because they're dealing with other insecurities that they have in their lives. And so filling a void where something used to, be a major part of your life and then trying to replace it with weightlifting I could see. And then there's other people that like try to use it as a way to release like anger and frustration and things like that. Right. And I'm like, I don't know if that's the right way to go either.
Yeah,
but
for me, honestly, I think it was just, I was the soccer kid my whole life.
Yeah, for sure.
And I looked at some of my friends who had a little bit more muscle on them.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want to be that guy. I want to see what that feels like.
Like less fit
so
and more strong.
So like 3 months later, some people saw me from the soccer team like, dude, what happened? Are you taking steroids? What's going on with you? I'm like, no, just the college lifestyle mixed with lifting. That's what happens.
Yeah.
So,
heck yeah.
But no, sports are a huge part of my life. Discipline's the one thing I got from it. And I still continue to use the lessons I learned from soccer and that discipline, and not just my current fitness, which is a big part of who I am, but also in my business, at Mitten and Winners and what I do and everything in life, honestly.
Yeah.
My life's very disciplined and regimented, so.
Yeah,
so
that's good.
We
are not alike in that way.
We are not, Bobby. No, I'm
also, our hairlines are different. So
I'm starting to get that Mitten name on my head. Don't worry.
So going back real quick, I hate to interrupt you, but
you're good, Bobby.
But there was also something about the coaching relationship, at least for me anyway. I see it with my kids. I see it with other people's kids, and the ability to be coachable, right? And just take, I don't even want to say criticism, but like feedback, and actually apply it, right? Because when you truly want to get better at something that you're doing, right, when somebody gives you that feedback, you have to then take that feedback, process it into a conscious awareness when you go to do that same thing again differently, right?
That's right.
So like in your business or in business in general, right? Because, there's times where, we got Doug coming on the podcast soon.
Ooh,
but when this guy,
I'm so glad I'm before him. Just make sure my episode airs before his.
But to my point, right? Like when Doug starts talking, there's so many of us that are like, "Yes, sir." Like we're just like, we just shut up and we listen. Mm-hmm. And you're one of those people that like when somebody does have some kind of value to bring, I do like see you receive it, which I think that it's so important because you do see a lot of. How old are you, Kevin?
I'm 33.
Young guy. No, I'm 36. So you're 36. Yeah. I got you by 3 years. Yeah. That explains the hairline, right, guys? No, I'm just kidding.
Most people hear 30 and they're like, wow. And you're my CPA. 33, huh?
Yeah. So I think that's still
most people don't know how young I am, honestly.
Right. So. Yeah. And I think that's relatively young.
You are? Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said that you're younger. I was like, I know you're 21, man.
He is 21. But anyway, so when you see like again, a younger business owner, again, I think I'm young, so I obviously think you're young. A lot of times when they get into a position and are having success, they don't want to hear anything from anybody. They become a little bit more arrogant.
They call it tunnel vision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think that, and maybe I'm wrong in your setting, but I think with a lot of people, that coach to athlete relationship, no matter what sport it is or anything like that, can encourage that that kind of mindset moving forward into employment, into business, into your career, of just being coachable and being able to receive information and being humble enough to put it into practice as well.
No,
and
absolutely.
Yeah,
I agree with that, and it's a really good way to put it. But that absolutely did help me coming into business. And the relationship I had with my dad wasn't like a coaching relationship, but he's someone I admired quite a bit. And I am the type of person that likes to take in a lot of lessons and then apply them as you may. One thing that was a downfall of mine was sometimes trying to take those lessons and seeing like your vision of seeing how people accomplish success, right? So for me, for example, watching my dad in business and seeing how he was successful and thinking that's how I have to do it, right?
Right.
That's my that's how I see success, is just trying to be my dad. And that's something that he was my biggest asset, but it also became probably one of my bigger downfalls at some point in my career, where I tried to replicate who he was.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense, but
it does. It does.
watching him in that coaching type of relationship where I just wanted to be successful like he was one day, and that made me try and replicate his personality to a point where it was a little unnatural, to be honest.
Yeah, for sure.
Because, there's so many different versions of success, and trying to be somebody you're not, which I'm not saying I'm not my dad, I'm similar to him, but I'm certainly not him.
Yeah.
Became a little unnatural for me. And it wasn't until I kind of owned who I was as a person that I started really finding my own success outside of my dad, right? So kind of deviated there, but that's
no, that's actually, I mean, gosh, it's such a great topic, because I think it goes to the idea of, doing things how they've always been done, right? And how dangerous that can be in business. Your dad was a phenomenal business person, from everything I've heard from you and anybody that came into contact with him, the same thing. But as you get into the role, you still have to do it the way that you're going to do it. You have to communicate with people the way that you're going to communicate with people, not the way he would have. You know what I mean? Because there's a good friend of mine, McCall Jones, who is one of the mastery coaches in 5+1 with Master Networks, and she teaches on something called charisma styles. Okay. And what I think about that, it comes down to like doing things that complement your own personality, and how you can take your own personality and use it as a strength, no matter who you are and how you would typically naturally behave in any environment. You know what I mean? And so I think
very
that
interested in that, by the way.
Oh yeah,
You have to tell me more about her.
It's actually, it sounds like fluff, but if you get into her program in any way, even if you just watch like a YouTube video, it's actually very impressive the way that she breaks it down. Anyway,
I'm a huge believer in that, right?
Yeah.
We're all so different.
Yes.
That trying to replicate anyone else's version of success most likely will be unnatural to you. So that's back to your original question of,
being coachable,
learning from people, being coachable. You should absolutely be coachable. I'm still coachable to this day, right? I'm learning from Doug. I'm learning from you. I'm learning from people in Master Networks every day.
Yeah.
But just because I'm learning these things every day doesn't mean I'm necessarily going to take that and then do that exact thing.
Nope.
I might take one thing out of a month of hearing people speak, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you have to find your own version of who you are.
Yes.
And,
oh man, that's so good.
And don't make me get into the Gary Vee stuff of like triple downing on your strengths, right? But
but it is a big game of self-awareness. You're right.
Self-awareness, finding your strengths and playing to those strengths. And honestly, it wasn't until I started doing that type of stuff that I started having success outside of my dad and his legacy.
Yeah. So. And real quick, and then we'll move on from this topic, but there's a connection to what we're talking about with, like, again, traditional practices in certain industries or certain businesses doing things because we've always done them. There's a connection between this conversation and that one, and it's, we should be challenging traditions to a certain degree, right? I think there's an unhealthy way of doing it too. I think it's unhealthy to ignore the things that have worked. All I'm saying, I think, is it's healthy to consider that some things can work better, or it's healthy to consider that there are things that we haven't tried that will work just as well, if not better, So anyway,
100% agree.
Yeah. So let's talk about this though. Let's talk about your movement into Mitten and Winners, right? You're getting out of college. How does this play out for you and your career?
Yeah, so I didn't know what I wanted to do right out of college. I think we all graduate college, or some people don't go to college, or you step into the workforce and you really don't know what you want to do. I know deep down in my dad's heart, he wanted me to be a Mitten and Winners, right? So
sure.
That was his end game.
Yeah.
So he wanted to get me at the firm. But I didn't know if I wanted to go into the city and work. I didn't know really what I wanted. So I made the decision at some point, I'm going to go work for my dad and just see what happens.
For real. Yeah, for sure.
Ended up working there and loving it. He was a great boss to me. Obviously, he's my dad too, but he was a good boss to me as well. And he allowed
Were you guys able to separate that?
I don't know. A lot of our conversations. Are we good?
Yeah, we're good. Keep rocking.
Okay. Oh, there's the TV. Okay, I couldn't figure out what changed. But that's a good question. But a lot of our conversations probably in personal life were about work.
Okay.
And he always tried to change that, because I know that he grew up in working with his dad.
Okay.
Mitten Construction. But he always tried to separate. He remembered his dad used to always talk about work all the time. So he used to try and pause that sometimes in our personal lives. But it was hard to separate that sometimes, because we work together, right?
Yeah.
And work becomes life. But anyway, no, I went to Mitten Winters, ended up loving it. Super fortunate I got to grow and have my dad as my mentor, because for those who don't know, and you probably didn't meet him. I don't know if you did.
Yes.
You probably heard of him at least.
But briefly, and I'm sad that I never got to, to have any deep conversation or anything like that.
But he was a incredible business guy.
Yeah.
Businessman. So to get to learn from him literally from day one, I was sitting in on meetings with him. So for the 10 years I was able to work with him, greatest thing in the world.
Yeah.
Because he was a heck of a coach to literally watch day in and day out. So
yeah. There's I'm sure, at that time especially, there was probably this expectation that you had to deliver, at least with the rest of the team and the company, at a level that he did.
yeah, the boss's son.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's how it was.
Yeah.
But no, I put a lot of pressure on myself in the beginning, because I was his son. And, from the day I stepped in there, I knew I was going to be running the place one day. Super intimidating to me. Again, that's part of why I tried to replicate who he was. But there was a tough part about being the boss's son too, because I was always worried about, how some of the people might portray me and say, does he have what it takes to be the next leader of the firm? But a lot changes in 10 years, I'll tell you what. So
yeah.
But
yeah. It
did present some unique things being in the position I was, but I wouldn't change it for anything. The good and the bad parts, I wouldn't change any of it. So
yeah. So as you were, becoming more and more, accustomed to being an accountant, following it the way that he was doing it, were there ever times where you butted heads, and there were times where you wanted to do something or implement something and it wasn't?
No, not really, man. If I'm being honest with you, I was scared to step up and probably say to my dad, "No, you're wrong, Dad. This is how it should be done."
Yeah.
He just had such a respect factor from me.
Yeah.
That I think I looked at him as I said too much respect to say,
you're wrong.
To say, "You're wrong, Dad." But there were, and the reason I think I never had to do that was because anything that I said or wanted to do in the firm, he was like, "Okay, let's do it."
Yeah.
And we did a lot of that stuff.
That's good,
and we're definitely not out of the Stone Ages, because I'm coming into a second generation firm. But all the stuff that I wanted to do, such as like get current, get the website going, start some different forms of advertising. And one of the biggest things was like the SEO type thing.
Right.
You know
Sure.
how valuable that is.
Sure.
He let me do it all.
Yeah.
And a lot of it worked.
Yeah.
And, some of it didn't work.
Yeah.
But he never stopped me and said, "No, you can't do that." So
that's good stuff, man.
So
he
I think I was
willing.
lucky in that part. But if he were to, I would never get in an argument with my dad.
Do you think
I'll
so?
be honest with you.
I have a question about, all right. So if some of it didn't work, do you think that he may have known that it wasn't going to work and wanted to see it play out? Is there any degree of that?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, it goes both ways. I think he knew I had to become my own person.
Right. But
was
you
always
have to
my
learn
biggest
that through
advocate.
mistakes
You do,
sometimes.
you do.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I remember, I'm not going to go over the story, but there was one time where I had my biggest fail that I ever had in my career. And I remember he used it as a lesson, but it was also hard for him to see me go through it, right? It was just it wasn't a huge lesson, but it was a small lesson. And I remember I'm so grateful for that one fail that I had, because it really changed the dynamics of the way I do business. And and he could tell in the meeting where we talked about it, which was hard for him to talk about it, to be honest with you. Because he didn't like to see me like that.
No, of course not.
But he knew, you could tell that he knew that was going to be a major learning experience for me. And he certainly had his failures, which is why he,
Exactly. And I think there's so much value in that, though,
There
man.
is,
When you
for sure.
especially in that situation, and I'm sure it's hard, especially when it's a loved one, to put your emotions to the side and let a situation play out, or even be that person to witness it play out. But I think there's a lot of value to letting somebody make the mistake or experience the failure, because it'll be a way better lesson learned than if he had intervened or interfered with your whatever this was, right? And said, hey, Kevin, I don't think you should do this. Here's why. It may have never processed for you, right? Because that's just a hypothetical. You know what I mean?
Sure, man,
it's just a warning
I
of
agree.
what could not happen versus what about what could happen. And so experiencing it, man, there's so much more lesson to that.
Yeah, and I haven't had a ton of failures in my life, and that
Well,
was
good
something
for
I was.
you.
I've had some failures. But I haven't had. Yeah, right. Good for me. but
Let's knock on some wood
I
here,
think
bro.
I might have told you that before, Bobby. Is that you and I came from completely different backgrounds, right?
Yeah.
The way we got to where we are, and part of me used to think, I wish I kind of did have to struggle a little more. Not that I didn't have my failures or my struggles, but part of me thought, maybe I always was very aware of that. I had a pretty good life growing up, and I didn't want that to become a downfall for me. And I was always very aware of that, because you hear people talking about, failures are the greatest thing, but I never had a significant failure in my life, and obviously knock on wood, but I've told you this before. I was envious of part of how you created your business, right? There was a time in my life where I was thinking, I'm going to take over my dad's firm one day. I'm never going to have the opportunity to create my own firm, but really I am, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to have that opportunity, but there's a part of me that's envious of your story.
Yeah.
Because I used to hear my dad's story growing up.
Right. Yeah.
And my dad's story, it was such an epic story that he would tell.
Yeah.
And part of me was like, man, I'm never going to get to have that.
Well, look, can I respond to this? Yeah.
Please, Bobby.
All right. So I want to say, bro, from the opposite perspective, I can tell you that what you're doing and what you've done could very well be much more difficult than what I've done. And here's why. Because I had zero pressure. Nobody expected me to do anything, right? So I could come in, fail 1,000 times, and nobody was going to give a crap.
That's a good point.
You, on the other hand, bro, you had a lot of pressure on you, and maybe in the moment you just didn't allow yourself to, you know what I mean? Like you put the pressure on yourself. You said a little bit more than
I put
everybody
too
else.
much pressure on myself.
That everybody else was putting. It wasn't really
I'm
that
getting
everybody
better.
else was putting the pressure on you, but you had something that where you had a lot to lose, right? So like when you've got control or authority to make decisions in a already existing and good quality business, you then have the power to screw all of that up, right?
That's true.
Whereas for
Valid
me,
point.
you know what I mean? Like I never had that. So anything like I always joke that when you start from the bottom, you have little fear of failure because I didn't have anything to lose. I think what you've done is way more courageous than what I've done.
I
by
wouldn't say
far.
that.
I think so. I mean,
well,
again,
thank
that's
you.
my opinion.
You're a humble man,
I'm
Bobby.
caught up on my wire. Hold on. There we go. I'm back.
Good? Okay.
Yeah. I told you it would happen or at the beginning. And I just think that to be true, man. I think
Good
that
perspective.
you and I've brought CJ up a couple of times already. And I think, you guys, for whatever reason, have walked a similar path in the business. And I think that, man, that's a heck of a lot more pressure than what I experienced. And
and
we all have our own stories.
We do, and that's
own
what I
them.
love about business and what I love about my role as a CPA is because I get to see so many different versions of business and stories and failures, successes. I get to see it all. I get to see what works for people, what doesn't. And that's why I love what I do.
Yeah.
It's because I get to work with people that come from all different backgrounds. And I can tell you this, not one of them, they might have similar stories, but not one of them has the same exact story.
Nobody. And
my point to saying, right, there's so many different ways to run a business, to be successful. And
there's plenty of ways not to.
And there's plenty of ways not to.
So that brings up what I was going to say next. Dude, be proud of yourself because there's a lot of people out there, bro, that have taken over businesses or been put in positions of power within their family's business and just did everything wrong. So, and we
proud.
see that a
proud.
lot you know, because there's a lot of what your parents did, and there's a lot of what maybe, you know, the sports and just your following in your dad's footsteps the way that you did, that created the right formula for success with you. Because I'll tell you, there's plenty of kids that, you know, I say kids, but I mean sons, daughters that have stepped into shoes that were way too big for them and tripped over it, and just, it wasn't a good show. So what you're doing, be proud of it.
I am proud of it.
Yeah.
I am proud of it. You know, I'm 33 years old. I have such a long career ahead of me, and I'm just excited for it. It's going to be fun.
So we're going to get into a couple other things, one of which we've talked about a little bit, obviously, with your father. But before that, I mean, you're growing into Mitten. You're watching your father's footsteps. Where does your journey with Terry and your family begin?
I can't tell that story.
You can't tell that story?
No, I'm kidding.
I mean, you don't have to give details, but at what
Terry
age?
was the golf cart girl at Wild Quail. And
What?
I'm kidding. No, it's like, you're right. Yeah, no. It's not what you think it is. So Terry, actually, she was the golf cart girl. She was, I guess, not my waitress, but a waitress at Wild Quail. And we knew of each other. And then she eventually told us that she was going into the accounting field. And honestly, my dad was like kind of the matchmaker. Like, he knew what he was doing, but he was like, "Oh, you're in accounting? You should come intern at the firm."
Oh, nice.
So he was like, I think he was already matchmaking.
Dude.
Because he was like, "That's your future wife, Kevin."
Man. A legendary
nice, right?
wingman.
He was the ultimate wingman. Let me tell you what. Yeah, he was the ultimate. But she started working at the firm, and we just got to know each other a little bit, and then things happened, and then next thing you know, we're dating.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, we fell in love hard, though. We fell in love quickly, I'll say that. So
that's good, though, man. You guys both deserved it.
But now I've got to jump to like one of the biggest. My dad was all about cliches in life and lessons. And he used to tell me, and he saw me go through a lot of different girlfriends. And he used to tell me, when you meet the woman you're meant to be with, you will 100%, without a doubt, know that's the woman you're meant to be with. And he used to tell me that. My mom would attest this, like, I've probably heard at least 1,000 times him saying that. And I think why he was saying it is because he's pretty much saying, I don't like your girlfriends right now. So, but let me tell you this, he was true.
Smooth delivery.
Smooth
delivery.
But he was right with Terry, because when I met her, it was like not met, but once we started dating, it was pretty quick. And it wasn't long. 2 months later, my mom was like, "Hey, you ever thought about proposing to Terry?" Next thing you know, I'm buying a ring and we're getting married. So
that's so cool.
Yeah, we fell in love quick.
Yeah.
And she's a good woman too. Terry's an awesome person.
Very.
She's the most humble person in the world.
I was just going to say that, bro.
You agree?
Well, I do, because it's crazy how I think you see people, and you see people that are in the public eye, and you see people that have reached a level of success, and they're not always so humble, so kind. And you guys, man, just any interaction I've ever had with you guys have always 100%, both of you, and this is probably why you guys get along so damn great, is you've always led with so much kindness and consideration. The questions are always like, directed with consideration and kindness, and we got a brief amount of time to play softball together. I don't know if you remember this. For what was it? I don't even know if it was like 6 games or something like that. I don't even know how long we played.
You got to see my true athletics. Right? Yeah, put me in a sport I'm bad at.
Well, we started with kickball. Remember, Katie and them put together.
That was up my alley.
Yeah. I was like, oh man, these guys, and I thought I was going to be good out there, and then you guys, swinging your soccer legs around that field or diamond or whatever it's called. Anyway,
a lot of practice.
But any interactions that I've had with you guys have just been 100% with kindness, and I appreciate that so much.
I'm glad that comes across that way, because honestly, I don't do it for any other reason than that's who I am. I've always been the nice guy.
Yeah.
So when they say nice guys finish last, not necessarily all the time, but just who I am.
Yeah, man.
I'm a nice guy. But Terry, on the other hand, she's one of the most humble people you've ever met, because she thinks, I shouldn't say she thinks, she doesn't realize how good she is at doing what she does, which is something that she's better at me than doing, which is people just like Terry.
Yeah.
And I think you and I might have discussed this before, but people see Terry and sometimes they think she's going to be like the mean girl. I don't know why she gives off that perspective sometimes, but she's the nicest person.
100%.
The easiest person to get along with, and she just stays true to who she is.
If we've done nothing in this podcast, let us bring awareness to how kind you and Terry are as a couple.
Make sure that makes the podcast.
That's gonna be our like little clip that we put out there.
That's the commercial.
Yeah.
For my podcast. But no, she's an incredible person. And we have a great relationship. And first foremost, we're friends. And then and she actually
Tessa?
works. And Tessa. And Terry works
who
with
is
us now.
2 or 3? How old
Tessa
is Tessa?
is turning 2 on Wednesday, the 29th.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh man, I hit that on the dot. I said 2 or 3, but I had a feeling it was 2. Yeah. Time flies though.
Exactly, man.
And it's been a quick couple years.
She's going to be 2, and I've got another one that's due in early August.
No, and is that a boy or girl, or do you know?
A girl.
Oh man, you're following.
So I was going to say, do you have any advice for me?
Jeez.
Second girl,
Enjoy it at this age, bro.
Yeah.
Because at some point they get a very strong opinion of their own.
That's what everybody says. Like, people weren't joking when they said terrible twos. Like, that's a real thing.
Yeah, and
So
I'm
warning
imagining
all
that there's
the
terrible
dads out
22s
there.
coming as well. So I'll let you
terrible
know.
what?
22s. I'll let you know when we get there. We're
They
only
all
at
have their
17
faces.
right now.
Yeah, everybody warns you about, like,
Yeah.
the bad stuff, right?
No,
But it's
real quick, I got to
it's
clean that
awesome.
up. My daughters are phenomenal. My 17-year-old who
Oh, I
just
know, yeah.
graduated is a tattoo artist, and she just started doing her first few tattoos, and we're super excited about what she's doing
Ariana?
because she's
Ariana?
because like you talked about earlier, and it's just like the self-awareness thing is like finding your own path and finding your own way, and that's what she's done, and I really appreciate
She
her
is
for that.
incredible.
She is very
Her
talented.
tattoo artist.
Yes,
She
she's
does her
very
artwork
talented.
that you're putting on social media.
Yeah,
Cool.
I'm blown away by
I'm
it.
going to stop interrupting you because I feel like you got more stuff to do.
Well, I don't want to make it about Ariana. I want to get back to you, Terry, and Tessa.
That's
and
true.
so you don't have to share this, but so another girl on the way. I was going to ask the name, but
No, I'm going to tell you.
oh, okay, let's
Do you
go.
want me to tell you the story of it too? No.
Okay.
Her name's going to be Claire.
Claire,
So hopefully I don't change it by the time she comes. So,
dude, we did that twice with our second.
No, but it's going to be Claire, and there's no great stories. It actually comes from a movie.
Okay,
It's going to sound bad, but The Wedding Crashers.
okay.
Do you remember? Yeah, you remember that?
Don't remember a Claire,
The
but
daughter's name was Claire.
Okay.
Like the main daughter.
Okay.
And there was just one part of, and Terry's story of Claire's
this is
probably
the one that
completely
Owen's
different
after
than
the whole
mine.
time.
What's that?
Owen Wilson.
Yes.
Is that? Yeah, he's
exactly.
after her the whole time.
Um,
Who is
Rachel
actually
McAdams?
Rachel
Rachel
McAdams?
McAdams.
Yes.
I love that movie, but there was a certain part of that movie where the dad, she goes to the dad.
Oh yes.
Like there was something bad going on. Like she's falling in another guy, and she was like, "Dad," and she's about to cry, and he's like, "What's wrong, Claire Bear?" And there was just that interaction in that specific
I
scene.
freaking love it.
The interaction in that scene, I was like, I love that. That's a good
I
relationship.
freaking love it.
That's a good father-daughter relationship.
Yes.
And so yeah, Claire.
And you know, like I don't
And-
think I've met any kids lately named Claire, so hopefully this podcast doesn't create a trend of Claires that are coming.
That's true.
but-
And go ahead.
I was just going to say, and hopefully by the time Claire arrives, she's still a Claire.
Wouldn't that be ironic if she watches this one day and her name's like something completely opposite?
We changed our
It
daughter.
could happen.
Our youngest daughter, who's Abigail, was supposed to be Annalise, but because our oldest was Ariana, and we all called her Anna, which we called her Anna Bear, and we felt like everybody was going to get confused by Annalise and Ariana, and they were going to call her Anna as well. So Annalise, and we started hearing people saying Annalise instead of Annalise, and we literally changed it in the hospital on our due date. I used the whiteboard in the hospital to spell out Abigail the way that we did.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
But now you're
so-
starting to stress me out because I'm like, I'm going to change your name.
Nah, dude. Whatever
picking
it ends
names
up
is
being is
hard,
going to be
right?
perfect.
Picking
it's
names is
not-
hard.
It's not fun.
It's not because really, I mean, it's like,
You want to be excited about it, but
correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I feel like this is true. Everybody has those names where you associate another person with the name. So like my wife might say a name. I'm like, nope, can't do that. I have this guy I don't like.
right.
And then she says a girl name, like, oh, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Cannot name her that.
Yep.
So it's so there's no Claires in this world I like. So for all the Claires out there, you're doing good.
Yeah, I like it. Cool stuff. And you haven't made any headlines for anything bad lately, that's for sure.
So
So-
never met a Claire I didn't like so far.
That's good. That's good. Especially the one from Wedding
Sounds
Crashers.
really
All right,
bad.
perfect.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't sound bad. I love this. And I also like, again, it's cool because, you know, you see obviously I've talked about you and Terry being super kind, but it's awesome to see you guys creating a family, because I think that's just that's just the dream. That's the goal. That's what we are all striving for, is to create a family and
it's cool, isn't it?
Forth. Heck yeah, man.
It's literally the circle of life.
Yeah.
To quote Lion King.
Yeah.
In case you didn't know.
It's deep, man.
Yeah, it's really deep stuff.
All right. So we are going to backtrack a little bit, because I do know that Tessa came after this. Your father didn't get to meet Tessa. Let's talk about this. I know and go as shallow or as deep with this as you want to go. But I do want to touch on it a little bit. Because George was actually on my show. We obviously didn't chat anything about your connection with him and your guys' relationship, but George is an awesome guy and doing so many things for so many people, and I freaking love that guy.
Me too.
But and we'll get to that if you want to. But let's talk about this, because I know that unlike CJ's story, and you brought this up at the beginning, how that can be very different. Where CJ kind of knew the writing was on the wall. He was going to lose his father. You guys didn't.
No. And I'll try and get into as much as I can without crying.
For sure. And we can break and stop and re-go again if you want to.
Take a break now. I'm kidding. No. I'm actually going to go back to my dad's story on this, because my dad's life and mine replicated each other's quite a bit. And he actually lost his dad right before his first. Yeah, right.
You told me this
before his first kid was going to be born. Who's not his first kid, as my brother, who's also his son, Eric. But before Aaron was born. And I know that was something that was really hard for him, and we had conversations about it. But unfortunately, the same thing happened with me. My dad died pretty young at 67. The same thing his dad died from, which was a heart attack. His dad died at 65. So,
oh wow. Okay.
Unfortunately, that was another part of our lives that replicated each other's. But it was definitely a hard thing. It's something I think about every day, watching Tessa, how much he would love her. But yeah, I can't go too much or I'll start crying. So, but it was something. It's weird that I find peace from this, but knowing that he went through it as well.
Oh yeah,
with his
familiarity to it,
with Aaron and losing his dad at the same time. I find peace in that he knows that what I'm going through with that. So I don't know why I find peace in that, but
okay.
But
I was almost thinking you were going in a direction of that gives you strength, knowing that if he could, if he went through it, you could go through it.
Part of it's a strength too. But just I know that he's been through it too.
Right.
So it's not like he doesn't know what I'm going through with that, and I know he's still there. He's given me a few signs.
Oh, I'm sure.
So
I'm sure.
But he loved his kids more than you could ever imagine, and he loved his grandbabies too. Caleb, Xander. There's a Max and Ben. Were the four he was able to meet, and then my sister had Riley, who he did not get to meet her, but he loved his grandkids, and he was the best pup up to him. So
I'm sure, and I feel like that's probably giving you peace and inspiration too, how you can experience something like that at that time in his life and still be such a loving and just full of kindness person that he was. Again, I didn't get to meet him to that capacity, but everything that I've heard about him from you and from others, he was just that guy,
Yeah, absolutely. And but no, he's certainly watching down. He's speaking of George helped me a lot with that, because I was going through some tough times in the last couple of years, when I lost my dad, and there was a point in my fitness journey where I just hit a low, and I connected with George, and he helped me out a lot with some of those things. One of the things being that he is present.
Yeah.
And he's seeing what I'm seeing through my eyes. So I live with him, and I believe he is getting to experience what I'm experiencing. So it's I find some peace in it, and that's part of what helps me not get too down on it.
Hell yeah.
I really do think he is experiencing what I'm going through.
Hell yeah, man. And he's proud as shit.
And he is
dude.
proud. I know he is
Hell
proud.
Yeah, he's proud.
So
it's awesome, man.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
So he's a good dude, but But yeah, when I lost my dad, it was certainly hitting more than one ways. I mean, you're losing your dad, obviously, first and foremost. But the other big piece is I'm losing my my mentor, right?
And he was still very active in the company at the time, right?
He was still active. I mean, we had a succession plan in place. There was a date set and everything.
Okay.
So he was.
Was it close?
It was very close, unfortunately.
Oh.
Yeah, he was very close to retirement. So he wanted to. I think it was April 15th, 2021.
Okay.
Yeah, and he was about a year out from retirement. So but yeah,
I think that's just another, and I'm sorry not to interrupt you, but I think that's such a compliment, not just the succession plan, but the compliment is to any business that can create a company that will be a well-oiled machine with
4 generations.
Yeah.
And he did just that. So like, tip my hat to him. He pretty much created a succession plan, but no, we had a succession plan in place, and you know, thank God I got to watch my dad grow in the company, and I knew what his role was. I was prepared for it, but still, you know, when something like that hits, there's a party that's you're devastated, just lost your dad, but you're also part of you's like, oh, training wheels off.
Yeah,
take the ship. It's yours now. So there's part of it that was a little terrifying, but yeah.
And I'm sure that could also be distracting, which can also not be so healthy in some instances too, because when that happened, there's also the responsibility to the company and the operations and everybody else that's counting on this business to continue to move forward. Your responsibility to that in a moment where you should be also mourning and grieving, I'm sure can also be a challenge.
It was. I took 2 weeks off, and then I went right back to work because when he passed, it was literally right at the beginning of tax season. So, you know, if there's the hardest time to lose somebody that's important to a company, it's certainly for our company right in the beginning of tax season. So I took 2 weeks off, came back to the office, and there wasn't a voicemail on my phone. There wasn't anything on my desk. Firm just picked it up and took care of it. So props to everybody at Mitten Winners, because they're literally a family to me, and I wouldn't be where I am without them. And that's what my dad used to say too, is that the only reason he is where he is today is because he surrounded himself with smart people.
Dude, it's so good.
Without them, I'm not where I am.
Yeah.
So that they stepped up huge. It wasn't just me, but I'm very proud of where we are now, which is more than 2 years later, and we're still growing. You know, we're in growth mode, but it's wouldn't be without the people at the firm. Certainly not just me. I'm just a piece of that puzzle. So but yeah, that's it.
Dude, I don't think there's anybody listening that is not 100% looking up to Mitten and Winners right now. And I'm sure there's tons of companies out there to look up to, of course, and way bigger companies. But what you guys have is definitely
it's special.
It's special. Yeah,
Bill and my dad created something special, and it's fun to carry on that legacy, create my own legacy, and yeah, I'm excited for it, man.
Hell yeah.
I used to let it stress me out, but now I'm just like, you know, I get thoughts out of my head, put them on paper, come up with a plan, and then we move forward. Let's if I think about all the future things I'm going to encounter, which is going to be a lot, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Second generation company. I mean, but when you put them out of your head and you put it on paper, it's one thing, and then you just come up with solutions in your head. And I think I have some really good solutions for the future. We're already into the future, but even the future.
The future of the future.
I plan too much. My wife tells me I get out of my own head sometimes. So.
You, and I don't know if you've ever met Dave, our director of operations over at Brightside, but you guys are similar. This dude, he puts everything on a freaking spreadsheet. I've joked about this on the show before. Have I mentioned this on the show? We went on a cruise one time, bro, and he literally had his entire cruise.
Seriously?
All of the outfits he was going to wear on the cruise on an Excel spreadsheet. Swear to God. I'm not making this up, dude. But let me tell you something. For the most unorganized person out there, he is my superhero because he balances what I definitely do not possess, which is organization and planning.
Props to you, Dave, for doing that, but I certainly do not plan my outfits on a spreadsheet. I'm pretty disorganized. Everything outside of work, I'm like disorganized. My wife keeps me in line, so like when I'm going on vacation, I'm just throwing stuff in a bag and I'm on my way. So, dude,
that's what I said. I said, dude, I'm lucky if I packed underwear. You know what I mean?
It's funny. I'm carrying like 5 bags over my shoulders, all my wife's stuff. Then I have my backpack that's like all my stuff.
All yours.
Yeah, but it's a nice backpack.
That might be a soccer player thing. I picked up my brother one night for a 2-night stay. He walked out with like literally like a Walmart bag or a Target bag, and he had like 2 things. I don't know what's in there, but apparently it's like Mary Poppins bag or something like that. And he's gonna pull out everything he needs.
I just know what I want, Bobby. You know, I know what I want. I know what clothes I'm wearing. I'm just good to go.
I'm good.
It's not, my style is not that complicated. So
I like this. All right. We have chatted for a while, but I have a few more questions if you're good. Okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, so you mentioned the culture. We were talking about how special it is at Mitten and Winters. How important is the culture to a business, and how has that played into the success of Mitten and Winters as well?
The culture is extremely important, and you really can't. Your identity is pretty much your culture, right?
Yes, sir.
That's essentially what it is, and we believe it or not, we are not the firm that has our culture or mission statements, anything like that, written out. It's kind of an unspoken culture, but we certainly all know what the culture is.
Yeah.
And I don't know how it came to that part, but our culture pretty much is we are a family, you know, and everybody in the firm knows that. And without that, without keeping that healthy culture, it's nearly impossible to run a business. So we all have to get along, and we do, which we're very fortunate for. But that being said, you know, one bad person in the firm can destroy a firm too. So
yeah, and that's why I'm sure as you guys are growing, it's super important to make sure that people are aligned with the culture of the firm. Now,
and they are. Yeah,
there's something that you said that's so, like, I think is so important, and people need to know this, is like, look, you know, more important than having everything written out and, you know, clearly defined and posted and, you know, mounted on walls is the behavior and the practice of those values, right? So you could have something so clearly defined, you could have your fancy mission statement and all your core values and everything like that, but if you're not living them, then those things are worthless, and what's more important is what you are living, right? Because that, whether it's good or bad, is determining your company's mood, culture, vibes, everything that they're portraying to the public. And so I think that what you guys have is far more important than having it all like written out and defined, because you guys are living it.
Yeah, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. That's something
it's not.
I honestly would like to define one day, and I kind of know what it is already. And I think the people in the firm do as well. But the one thing I can say to our culture is that our turnover rate's pretty much almost zero. Usually when people start working for us, they stay. We've certainly had some people that have left us, but people are happy, and that's the one thing I remember when I was taking a class in college. My dad always says employee happiness is so key.
Yeah.
The work-life balance and just being a family, you know. It's all about.
It's so big, man.
It is. You got to be happy when you're working. So
yeah, everybody's like, you know, the customer's always right, and you know, we got to do what we have to do to make the customer happy. And you know, while there's some truth to that, it's more about we've got to do what we've got to do to keep our team happy.
I will do whatever I have to do to protect my people, and you 100%. I 100% agree with you on that, and it's not said often, right?
It's not, man.
But there is a lot of truth. Yeah, the customer's always right, but at the bottom of the day, like, the people in that office are most important to me, and I'm gonna do what I have to do to protect them. And luckily, haven't had to do much of that. So
yeah, Dave Ramsey talks about how Dave Ramsey talks about this guy. He's like mentoring him or coaching him, and he's like, why should I have to thank my people for doing their job? It's their job. I'm already thanking them with a paycheck every week. I'm like,
wow,
gosh, could you imagine working for that guy? Like, you would never want to.
But I mean, there are firms that run that way.
Of course. And there's roofing companies, and there's, you know, every company out there, there's somebody like that. But man, it's crazy. And I guess what I meant to say when we talked about that culture is like, dude, you guys can have all of that stuff in writing and not be practicing any of it. So I think what you guys are doing is much more important than having it written down. And I think there's importance to both, but it's
all
what
organic. I'll tell you that. We don't give much thought to it. I think we just act how we are, and that's just, it is what it is. And we all love each other. We're a family. So
that's good.
So are our clients. Our clients are our extended family, and it's also about finding the right clients for you, right? Not every client's going to be your client, but we love our clients. I think our clients love us. We have good relationships with them, so we try and carry that beyond the office. We are a Mitten and Winters family, and it's how I'm going to continue doing things.
Yeah. you're not, I mean, you're obviously on Facebook and stuff like that. Are you a big social media guy?
I'm not.
No,
You
right?
didn't know I had his Facebook account? No, but I'm on Facebook. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know what you're saying.
But
But I don't do a lot with business stuff. You mean?
well, it's just, I was going to ask if you wanted to like plug any social media links or anything like that, but maybe for Mitten and
I thought
Winners
you
you
were
would.
insulting me.
No. I was
bad,
going to ask
guys.
you if you wanted to plug any Mitten and Winners landing pages, Facebook pages, or anything
Yeah,
like
we
that.
have a Facebook page. I'll be honest with you. Don't use
Yeah.
it a ton.
Yeah. Guys, you can look up Mitten and Winners.
But we have a Facebook page.
Yeah, I was going to say, fortunately enough, that's unique enough that a simple Google will probably find
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, so we don't use it a ton. But yeah, Facebook, Mitten and Winners Facebook. That's the only social media account we have. Obviously, we're on Google. Be happy to connect with anybody. I always say, if you just need to give us a call, see if we're a good fit for you, we're happy to just take that call, have a conversation, and move from there.
Hell yeah.
A free conversation, that is.
That's right. That's right. Kevin, there's one question I ask everybody that comes on the show, and that question in regards to the Xtra Mile is, can you name one time, or maybe even just to describe or explain one time, either in your career or in sports or anything like that, where going the extra mile, right, going above and beyond the current expectation really produced incredible results on the other side?
Yes, a great question. The one time I would say in my career at Mitten and Winners was actually when my dad passed. Took 2 weeks off, regrouped myself. But in that time, I also thought, what is the coming back into the firm? What does the firm need? What do you need to do to keep this thing going? And I made the decision at that point I was going to reach out to every single client as I did their tax returns, because keeping in mind I'm in tax season. Call them, just introduce myself, let them know a succession plan is in place, and it's something I didn't have to do, but I wanted to make sure that firm was going to succeed properly. Because when you lose your CPA, I mean, that's a big deal. People, just because they look up to my dad does not mean they're going to look up to me, and a lot of them didn't even know who I was. So
Right.
I think I would say just reaching out to every single client as I went through, not every client, but the ones I didn't know and the ones I didn't have relationships with, and just letting them know, introducing myself, having a quick conversation, letting them know things are in place, and just letting them know things will continue. And it's not the only reason, but that's part of the reason I think that we had little turnover, almost no turnover with our clients when I succeeded.
Yeah.
And came into the firm, because someone told me once, if you just make sure things don't change and that you continue to provide the same quality service, like, things are going to continue, and we did that. So no, I'm proud of that.
Heck yeah, man. You should be.
'Cause
And
it
you know
was,
what else is? It's so cool because you had already had the support of the team, right? Because walking back in without any voicemails, anything on your desk or anything like pressing, because the team picked up, right? So
which I did not expect that, but that was incredible, honestly, when I came in.
But it's an indication that, like, you already have the buy-in from the team, right? So now you're like, okay, cool. That gives you the opportunity to reach out to these clients and let them know that I've also got their backs, just like my team has mine and I have theirs. And I think that's super cool. And I don't know, like, how well that could have taken place for you if you had to come into a shit show of messages and voicemails and fires to put out. You know what I mean?
Like I said, can't do without the team. But I do think that phone call, it was, looking back, I am proud of it, because it was hard to have a clear mind,
Yeah, for sure.
coming back into that office. And unfortunately, I didn't have a choice. That's one thing I told Bill, who's my business partner now.
Yeah.
Was my dad's business partner. Is that I said, Bill, if there's one thing, is that I'm a workhorse, so I know what my dad's job is. I said, I don't care how long I have to work, I'll get it done this tax season. And we didn't hire anybody else that tax season, so I essentially found out how to become a good delegator. Still not a great delegator, but I found out how to delegate pretty quick and step into my dad's role, and didn't really have much time to think about it. So, but yeah. But proud of everybody at our firm. It's not just me, so it's
There's a certain degree of, like, this idea of, like, we can't hide from it. You know what I mean? Like, when you say, like, I still had to do it too. It's like,
That's right.
but sometimes there's so many people that are like, if this happens, I'll be screwed, or this, or, it's like, but at the end of the day, like, we as adults in this world don't really get to go hide from anything.
It's true.
We have to face it. And so hats off to you. Hats off to the team at Mitten and Winters for the way that you guys showed up and kept showing up. And I know that when your dad's looking down, dude, he's not just proud of you. He's proud of everybody at that team, but he's especially proud of you.
Thank you.
Heck yeah, man.
Thanks, man.
All right, guys, we are going to go ahead and wrap this up because we are rocking a little bit over an hour right now. And I'm probably going to have Kevin back for a second episode because I had so many business questions I wanted to talk about with him, but his story is so cool. And I think it's interesting to just share that perspective of, going into a business and taking the bull by the horns the way that you did. So I'm really grateful. Anything that you want to share with our viewers at all before we close?
Yeah, I'll say this. Going off that point, there's more than one ways to step into a business. You don't always have to start it yourself. So I tell people that a lot coming out of college that I've talked with. You can find a good company that wants to create a succession plan. I can promise you they're looking for one. There's a lot of companies out there looking for one, and you can work your way into them. So you don't always have to start from scratch. So
that's right.
Yeah.
Creative. Awesome stuff. All right, guys, listen, thank you so much for viewing and watching and listening to this episode of the Xtra Mile Podcast. We're going to continue to rock with a bunch of hometown entrepreneurs right here in the Delaware area. So if you are somebody, know somebody that should be on the show, have them reach out to us, and we will talk to them about getting them booked on the Xtra Mile Podcast. Thank you, guys, and see you next time.
Thank you for tuning in to the Xtra Mile Podcast. If you're still listening, that means you learned something or you would have turned this off. So make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode of the Xtra Mile